Hey crew, happy Wednesday. Today we're going to take a look at math again, and today we're going to look at what happens if you don't have to borrow from the tens to the ones, because sometimes it happens like that. So we're going to take a look at that today, because sometimes we have to borrow from the tens, and sometimes we have to borrow from the hundreds, and sometimes we have to borrow from both. Okay, so we're going to take a look at that on page number 341. So get page 341 out, and that's what we'll look at right away this morning. Got it? Good. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at number one. At the top of the page you can see it says, do I need to regroup or do I need to borrow? So on this, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at if we need to regroup or borrow, because we don't always have to. And as we looked at in two-digit subtracting, sometimes when you borrow, it confuses things. For instance, if I go 72 minus 21, and I just go, oh, I'm subtracting, I'm going to borrow, this becomes a problem, because now 12 minus 1 equals 11. And is that my answer? It's not. 411 is not my answer. Because in this problem, I didn't need to borrow. 2 is greater than 1, no borrowing needed. So that's the same thing when we're doing three-digit subtraction. So let's take a look at number 1 and see, do we need to borrow? And then, how do we do it? So 346 is what we're taking away from 508. So again, let's start as far over to the right as we can. 8 minus 6. Now if I start with 8, is 8 greater than 6? You betcha it is. So do we need to borrow? No. Greater numbers on top, I'm not going to borrow, because 8 minus 6 equals 2. So just put a 2 here, no borrowing needed. Now, we come to the tens. 0 minus 4. Do I need to borrow? Yes. Now, don't cross out both numbers and make 49, because that doesn't work in this case. In this case, I'm going to cross out the 0, and I'm going to add a 10 to it, so 0 becomes 10, and 5 becomes 4. So again, if we were to do this, 4 is the same as saying 400, 10 tens is the same as saying 100, and 8 ones is the same as saying 1. Add those together, and what do I have? 508. So that's why we have to borrow this way, because we're not taking away from the 0 to give anything to the 8. 8's fine on its own. We're borrowing from the hundreds place to give a 10 to the tens. So 10 minus 4, now we can do. So what does 10 minus 4 equal? 6. And 4 minus 3 equals 1. That's the easy part. The tougher part is the borrowing part and when we need to borrow. So there's your answer for number 1, 162. Let's go on to number 2, and let's do the same thing. Number 2, we have 500 minus 306. Okay, same thing. Let's start as far to the right as we can, in the ones place. 0 minus 6. Do I need to do 0 minus 6? Yes, you do. Can I do 0 minus 6 without borrowing? Nope, I can't. So let's go ahead and cross out the 0, make that a 10. Now, since we're borrowing to the ones place, we do need to cross out the 50 and make it 49, because 490 plus 10 equals 500. This one we didn't need to borrow that way. Now let's subtract. 10 minus 6 equals 4. 9 minus 0 equals 9. 4 minus 3 equals 1. And my answer is 194. So note the difference between the two. On this one we didn't have to borrow to the ones. We're only borrowing to the tens place. On this one we did need to borrow to the ones. So the way that we borrow cross out numbers is different on both of those. Alright, let's go on to number 3. I'll leave number 2 up here for those of you who are still kind of looking at that one. But I'm going to write number 3 right here. In number 3 we have 670 minus 340. Alright, starting as far over to the right as we can. 0 minus 0. Don't need to borrow when the number is the same. We just write a 0 in that place. Then 7 is greater than 4, so 7 minus 4 equals 3. 6 minus 3 also is 3. So do we need to borrow at all on that one? Nope, because every number on the top was either equal to or greater than the number on the bottom. So no borrowing required. 330 is our answer. All right, finally let's go to number 4. Number 4 says 570 minus 390. All right, starting as far to the right as we can, 0 minus 0. Same as over here, since those two are the same digit, it's a 0 on the bottom. Now let's go to the tens digit. 7 minus 9. Gotta borrow there. So 7, I make 17. 5, I make 4. 17 minus 9 equals 8. 4 minus 3 equals 1. And there's my answer, 180. Okay? So this is how you're going to do these kinds of problems. Again, what have we always talked about in math? Whether it's story problems, whether it's two-step problems, or problems like this, step by step. Always take the same steps every time. Start here, then here, then here. Start here, then here, then here. That way, if you need to borrow, you can borrow as you go, okay? But take it step by step by step. Don't get in a hurry, okay? Because that's where you start making those silly mistakes. Because you guys know better than that. You guys know better than that. We've been doing this for a while. Okay, so on the back side, they're just going to give you some more practice on it. All right, now, at the bottom, note there's a line there of adding, and then there's a line there of subtracting. Watch your sign, okay? So make sure you see when they're adding and that you do add. Don't make a silly mistake. Again, take your time, watch what you're doing. Now, let's take a look at the second sheet. Second sheet, more of the same. This would be page 175 and 176, the homework and remembering sheet. And then let's look at the stretch your thinking. We're gonna stretch, which is probably good because my hamstrings are a little tight today. In fact, before we get to this, guys, just give me a second. Oh yeah, oh that's me. I'm back. Oh, feel better. Okay, so now that we've stretched our backs and our let's stretch our thinking. Okay, so let's go ahead and have Anya. Can you read the stretch your thinking problem for us? Number 5. Okay, so when you're subtracting from a 3-digit number, how do you know if you will need to ungroup? Okay, seriously, this is not stretching us that far because we've been talking about this since we got into 2-digit subtracting. How do you know? How do you know you will borrow? How do you know? What do you think? Kason? Sure. If the number on top is less, we borrow. If the number on top is greater, we don't. There's your answer. Okay? It's no different than when we were in our 2-digit subtracting. Okay? So let's just do that. If the top digit is less than the bottom digit, how about let's need, you need to borrow. Okay, so there's your stretch your thinking. That's pretty much all there is to it. That's actually pretty easy. I don't feel like I stretched very much. I think I'm going to stretch my hamstrings again. Oh, much better. Oh, good. Okay, so we got it. We should have, is that it for the week? That might be it. I don't know. I'll have to check and see. That might be our last math lesson for the week. Check the videos. There are a lot of videos up that I just put up this morning. And this one will be out hopefully this afternoon sometime. Hopefully you are watching it this afternoon. Or, you have Thursday and Friday to work on it too. Don't forget, You also can work on this stuff next Monday because I'm coming to school next Tuesday. Keep up with that AR contest. Don't forget to be reading books, taking tests on AR. And some of you have been emailing me because you're struggling with getting into it. Let me know because I can send you the link and help you out with your password and stuff too, because I don't want you to miss out because you can't get into AR, okay? So check with me on that kind of stuff. Alrighty? Have fun with this. Catch you later.